Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cleaner Cast. As you know, we are live on YouTube every Friday at 6 Central. So if you want to come join live, if you're listening to us in podcast form, then come on over to YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and tune in every Friday, 6 Central. And as you know, we're available in podcast form on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We're running the clock on this one. We only have Mr. Dane Hennen for a short time. So let's go ahead and introduce my Canadian cohort. He is Mr. Alex Dua. What's going on, Dewar?
Hello, everybody. And I'm going to say it right now. That was probably my favorite intro clip ever.
Indeed.
That should deserve a 5-star review from all you people watching us. So,
yes,
as
if you're just listening, you gotta come over and watch. Yep. So you had a good week this week.
Very good. Yep. It was a lot of rain here, but also some humidity attached to that with the hotter days. But excited for the weekend. Yep.
That's what I'm saying. Humberto, where is everybody? Go let everybody know to get in here. Thanks for showing up on time, Humberto. You get a ribbon this week. But like I said, we got to get Dane on here and get him to talking because we don't have him all day. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, he's at Great Dane Films. He's the heir to the TRC throne. He's got a T-Bird on eBay for sale. I think it's about to close, though, so you got to hurry if you want a T-Bird. And you can follow the man on Twitch. He is Great Dane Films, Dane Hennen. How's it going, Dane?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good. Hope you guys are doing all right.
We're making it.
Doing very well.
All right.
G. Davis in the house.
I'm just figuring out the position of the camera here. I got it like on a little stand, but as I decide how this is going to work, maybe I'll set it on the table. Maybe I'll do a little dance. I don't know, something. That intro was something else. So I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I like to spice it up with a good little custom intro every week. Dewar sent me that clip earlier. I was like, "Got any clips we should show, Dewar?" And he sent me that, and I was like, "I forgot about this video. I got to make this intro."
Snuck it right up on me.
I never forget. We were like, "What's a good clip of Dane?" And I'm like, "There's a lot of good ones, but I love that one because it's the entire creamer." So
all of it. All the creamer,
entire bottle. Yeah. Fantastically shot. I mean, just amazing work over there by
beautiful.
TRC. Yeah. Beautiful shot of the creamer and the what was that? The V8 gang. I think that video was called
the V8 gang. That was the deal there. And I got Anthony walking by. He could wave at the camera as he walks out the door.
Hey guys,
there's the man, the myth, the legend.
But otherwise, I'll be on here. So next time you'll definitely have me. So have fun. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do. Right? Maybe start live streaming later.
Oh no!
You guys in it?
I got to do stuff tonight.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway. So this is kind of going to be TRC Part 1. We have Dane on this week to give us the TRC story and all that good stuff. And then in the future, when Anthony decides to set a date, we will have him and Levi on board to tell us all about these nano diamonds. So if you're here to talk nano diamonds, save it for Part 2. Part 1, we got Dane.
Yeah, you can ask me, but my experience with that is a touch limited, we'll say.
Yeah, well, you can set it up for the boys to get into it further into the future. But today we're talking some good old microfiber and Twitch.
That's right.
That's right. So
the good stuff. The meat potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
So, Dane, kick us off with the TRC origin story from the garage to Tau Empire. Just give us the abridged version and kind of how you came on board.
Anybody who knows me knows I talk way too much. I don't know if there's necessarily a lot of important information except for like maybe the 15% you got to dig through and find it, but it's there. I just like to flourish it up a little bit. But in this case, I'll give you the abridged version. So to really make it simple, the company did not start under myself or my family. It actually had a life before that with a retired couple who had it. Their names were Bev and Dale. They were really nice people, but and they're still alive. I'm making it sound like they're not. They're still alive.
They're still
but basically, what essentially happened here was they ran the company. It was mostly Bev's, so the wife, she ran it as kind of like almost like a retirement project kind of thing, like, idle hands, all that kind of thing. You want to have something to do in your retirement, and she found that she really enjoyed like the customer service side of it. That was a big thing for her. It was just being really responsive and attentive over the phone, helping people with problems. But back in '99, she started this business, the rag company, and had it, based out of the garage. And that was just right here in Idaho. So it was started here in Idaho back in 1999. And years go by. She keeps it growing. Building up a good collection of people who like buying towels from her and stuff. But once again, it's just a 2-person operation. She handles the front facing stuff, the customer service, that kind of things, and he does the books because I guess by trade he was a CPA, so he understood that stuff pretty well. That was an easy thing to adapt for him. But the company was never like huge or anything, but they did have some interesting customers already in their repertoire when we found out about it. So you cut forward a few years, you end up at like 2012, 2013. We hear about these people through a mutual family friend. And the reason it was even brought up as a subject was because for years and years and years, my parents had worked all kinds of odd jobs. Like, for anybody who knows their backstory, it's crazy. You want to talk to them sometime because my parents were originally musicians and a cocktail waitress and all that kind of thing. So fun, kind of origin story there. And actually it starts here in Boise as well, which is funny, but back in the 70s. But anyway, yeah. So cutting through that, for a long time, they had since gone back to school to finish their stuff. Back in the 90s, they kind of got, their degrees enough that they could go and start like corporate gigs, right? The typical desk job in glass building, that kind of thing. My dad worked at Weyerhaeuser, like a paper supplier from Washington. Yep. And my mom got into the healthcare field. She was an echocardiographer. So she did, scans of people's hearts and organs, stuff like that. And was there really as that technology was kind of evolving. So she's super familiar with that. And yes, she knows a ton about that. But basically, they had those, and that was kind of their corporate gig for a while. And as you work your way up, especially like my mom at the hospital, office politics are weird. Like, you just run into some strange attitudes and things there. And you kind of, if you're like her, she doesn't like seeing other people get taken advantage of or treated poorly, that kind of stuff. Obviously, she wants to be in the healthcare field because she wants to help people. But she just started seeing that kind of stuff in places and was going, that's not right. I don't like how this feels. And so she was kind of noticing, too, that it was just, not a super great environment at times. And they had always dreamed of being able to run their own business, maybe pick up a franchise. At one time, I laughed. They were very serious at some point years and years ago about maybe we'll get a Schlotsky's Deli and we'll run a Schlotsky's, like just something that you could call your own, that you could just run it. It's a small business and there's no boss to talk to because you are the boss, that kind of thing. Yep. So I get it. And a lot of detailers, I think, can relate to this feeling too. Of like, I worked a job, it sucked. I want to do my own thing now. And detailing gives you a little bit of freedom and actually some decent, room for growth that other jobs where you kind of take it on your own may not, at least not quickly. But detailing does offer that. So anyway, I'm really not making this short. So anyway, when it came down to it, my parents, because they displayed this interest in potentially, finding a business someday. This is kind of an oddball, but a family friend of theirs also knew this Beth and Dale. And she mentioned to them, hey, there's this couple. They've got this business. It's based in their garage. They sell microfiber towels. That's basically the extent of it. It is not a whole lot else, explained there other than they sell towels, which is like, okay, cleaning supplies. Interesting, I guess. Right. But it's something. It's a business, and they're in a position where they're looking at just dropping it, retiring, that kind of thing. But Bev, she really cared about it and didn't want to give it to just anybody. They were trying to offer it to family and friends. Nobody wanted it because if you saw it in its state when I first saw it, which I was like the first boots on the ground that wasn't them, like going and checking it out, like scouting for us. I literally decided to go and job shadow. So I spent a week with Dale because the reason for this was Bev found herself in hospice. She was in a position where she had some accelerated condition that was limiting her ability to do a lot of things. She sounded good over the phone, but physically it was really taking a toll and she wasn't able to do this stuff and the stress was building. So yeah, I think all that stuff was weighing, and none of the family wanted the business because it's a bunch of cardboard boxes full of microfiber towels in their garage. There's really not anything else to show for it. So I job shadowed Dale. I learned a little bit about drop shipping, that kind of stuff for the items that you don't have in stock. Like early on, they had a lot of things in stock, but because they're based in their garage, there were certain things where it's like, okay, we can do like a supplier for that one or whatever, but we really try and carry as much as we can. But they were really limited because it's the garage. So yeah, that was something where they're kind of learning, but it was understanding the communication with the customer. And I have a ton of experience in that because I go back at this point, I've got in excess of 20 years of customer service experience. But I'm always the guy who worked like at Home Depot, or I worked at a ski lodge as a bus boy. I've done the dirty jobs and the less than appreciated jobs, stuff that kind of goes just ignored or whatever. And you learn a lot with how people treat those people. So I find that really colored my approach to how I would do something if I was suddenly in charge. So I have a very empathetic approach to stuff. I always try and put myself in someone else's shoes, understand where they're coming from, figure it out. So customer service is like a natural thing for me. But in this case, it was, job shadow, answer the phones, figure out, okay, this is kind of how it vibes every day. And this is when you ship stuff out. There really weren't a lot of orders coming in. Honestly, it was like maybe an order every other day. It was very slow. For retail type orders. And then for the larger customers, they would order a lot of stuff. But at the time, their biggest customers were people running cleaning services. And most of those cleaning services were actually based in like Florida or New York or kind of like even Texas or Missouri, places like that. So not necessarily, right around here. It's a lot of stuff elsewhere. So a lot of stuff's getting shipped when it does go out. And the thing you'd notice, obviously, having the stock that a garage holds is, well, you run out of stock pretty quickly, but you got to stay on top of it. But you can't order too much or else you blow your budget. It's figuring all that stuff out because that's why it never really had room to grow. It was kind of limited by the process that was surrounding the whole thing. Anyway, long story short, wound up in a scenario where, yes, they were finally open to potentially selling the business to someone who wasn't family or friend, that kind of thing. And that's where my parents said, okay, Dane has gone and looked at it, seems to think it could be interesting. Maybe it'd work. We're willing to buy the business, but it's not like my parents were loaded. They were in a position where, they had like a little nest egg set aside, but there's like, retirement stuff. It's not the kind of thing you necessarily want to dip into, or you sound crazy, when you talk about that for the people who do have that kind of thing. Unknown. Nobody's loaded here. It's all firmly, lower end corporate job, middle class, whatever you want to look at. So this is a huge deal. This is, kind of putting things at risk. And they made an offer and they essentially said, I hope you turn us down, but that's all we're able to offer. So well, if that works, that's awesome. But I totally understand if it's not for you. And Dale, he kind of looked at him and, it's not quite what I'm looking for, but at the same time, if I know anything of my marriage, I need to go talk to the boss, see what she thinks. And so he left for an hour, and then he called back an hour later, and he said, all right, so she just has one question. And that question is, are you actually going to try and make this work? Are you just going to take the stock that's here, liquidate it, sell it all off, make a few bucks in a hurry, and move along to something else? Because in a lot of other people's hands, that's probably what would have happened. The whole dark reality is, that's how.
I think that's what would have happened if, like, if their family would have took it from them. That's probably what would have.
Yeah. There was no passion for that there, because honestly, I totally get it. Who's getting passionate about towels?
Yeah.
But at the same time, now it's funny to say because we've
Mhm.
kind of turned it into a thing. But
Yeah,
back then,
absolutely.
it was not something that people were. Ooh, wow, yeah, no,
That's
gotta
what
get on that.
I want to know. What you saw in the towels, like in the microfiber in general,
So,
that you were like, yeah, I'll give it the thumbs up. Let's go ahead and get this,
mhm.
and it's gonna
Because
be.
you were learning all about it too. Like you didn't
Yeah.
have a background really of them before that. Right?
No, my understanding of microfiber towels was what cleaning products we sold when I worked at Home Depot, and I was still working at Home Depot at the time.
Mhm.
And you know what cloths we used at the hospital, because I also worked in the emergency room supply unit, ordering products for the delivery and the ER. Excuse me, air bubble. So basically, I had familiarity with like products and SKUs and ordering and all that kind of stuff, but it was not microfiber centric. That was a whole new world to learn about. And auto detailing was the part that appealed to me, not because I like cleaning anything necessarily. I know you guys definitely do, obviously, but for me, it was just cars. I saw cars and I was like, something to tie together cars. I'd love to do that. But I was also noticing that the majority of the business, as it was currently centered around the obvious thing, the hotel cleaners, the supply companies who handle like the van roto-rooter services, all that kind of stuff. And that was where the majority chunk of the customer base was. But there were some interesting automotive ones, such as like Tesla Motors was already in the book as having ordered microfiber towels for their prototype department for testing out different stuff. So that was really interesting to find as we dug through the books and saw, oh, that's interesting. What's that do? Really? They ordered? And you find, and looking back, I won't out anybody, but it was definitely funny to find out that, now we were supplying some detailers who had their own lines of products and stuff and just having their own like towel lines, sometimes very color coordinated. Probably some people where it's like, oh, back in the day they were popular, maybe now not so much with YouTube moving the way it does. But it was funny to find out and have those interactions on the phone as we started to get into that, like, oh, okay, talking to me like there's some big deal and I have no clue who they are. But so, some fun stuff like that. And I learned over time. I learned. But for me, the big appeal that got me on board with it and interested in it was honestly not the microfiber. The microfiber was nice, but I didn't have an appreciation for how much it differed from what I was already familiar with. I knew that the precursor to the Eagle Edgeless, those felt different. Those looked different. They were not something I was familiar with at all, because my experience with microfiber towels up to that point had been primarily the obvious ones, the Terry style ones that everybody knows, the Kirklands and the, all that stuff, Costco things, Sam's Club, all that stuff.
Low nap.
But the HDX at Home Depot and all those ones too. So so that was kind of the basis of my understanding, but I was willing to learn because obviously this is something that I was going to have to get familiar with very quickly. So I spent a lot of time, even though I'm not like a spreadsheet guy or a math guy, I was learning all those alphanumeric names and all that stuff, because back then the towels didn't have names. That was something that my dad and I were pushing, turning stuff into, was like, we got to give stuff names to make it more memorable, because 4101-1616-B, which was the original number for the Eagle Edgeless before it was Eagle Edgeless, just really didn't have a ring to it, So we're trying to adapt that a little bit. But yeah, the Eagle Edgeless was something, and I think that was my dad's idea. I had some of the more obscure ones like the Split Purple-Nelly and the Knight Rider and things like that. But yeah, Drive Me a River was my dad's, and he kind of expanded off from there. But trying to think of how this all ties together. Basically, the part that really appealed to me was the clean slate approach. The idea that, okay, they have a website, but it's very basic, and not to be rude, but it definitely had kind of an old lady vibe to it when you're looking at it. It was interesting. It was like a totally black website with a very dark greenish teal logo that was written in the same font as like the New Yorker. So it was just like super, it's not jumping at you like, buy me, kind of thing. It was classy, sure, but it was not, in 2012 and 2013, it was not quite the hotness, the freshness, the hipness. No. So I basically
fast forward
about
to the
trying
beautiful
to come up
Rag Company rep website. Well,
Sure.
it'll pop up,
No,
right?
well, thanks. No,
There we go.
that's been
Yep.
a big team effort. So huge shout out to our web guys. We got a handful of people who work behind the scenes now and make all that stuff happen. But it was a long road to get in there. So basically, my mission when we started, other than just answering the phone for the odd order that would come in, was trying to develop a social media presence, which I knew was important, but had never really done in any capacity before. I just had to use a general intuition as to how that stuff should work, having been marketed to myself by other companies all that time. I kind of thought, okay, how do you approach that? And the logo, I made the TRC logo that everybody knows. So that was something that I was particularly proud of because it was my first like chance to really put my stamp on something and have it be a memorable piece. At the time, people said, "Oh, that's a cool logo," but didn't really think anything of it. Now it's like such a firmly established thing. It feels really good to be able to look and go, "Yeah." That was like my first real big project. But I took all the old HTML that I learned when I was in high school and I applied it to building a new website for us, which I can barely remember HTML now. But I built our first website after theirs, try and recreate something. And then after that, I made like a big commerce website. We just kind of adapted, moved along. And it got to the point where we are now. But I will say, I think one of the biggest tricks, not as a huge trick, but one of the biggest smart moves that I came up with, not to toot my own horn here, when we were starting out, though, was thinking, okay, I see all these people out here on detail, because I was doing detailing research because that was the part that appealed to me. I was noticing all these detailers hang out on all these forums because back then forums were still really popular and they still are to some degree today, but less so than they were. It's all Facebook groups and stuff now. But back then it was a lot of different forums, sometimes car care brands, sometimes more generalized like Auto Geek or Autopia, bigger ones like that. And I was just noticing a lot of overlap in the names I was seeing, like usernames and stuff between the different places. And I could just kind of pick up on trends, just see, different people kind of appearing in multiple places. And I thought, but a lot of these places have like basically gatekeepers that keep you as a business from getting in there. You can't get in because you either got to pay their vendor fees and go through that way. Well, we were tiny. Like we didn't have a budget or anything yet. It was just trying to figure out like, how can I reach more people who actually have an interest in this stuff? And I remembered that Reddit existed, and I'd never used Reddit, but I told myself, you know what, I'm going to go check out Reddit. I know it's a popular place. I just don't use it, but I'm going to go look at it. So I went and I looked, and sure enough, there was a detailing subreddit. And I'm like, oh, okay, we got a detailing subreddit here. People come here, presumably from all over the place. You know what? I bet a lot of people who hang out on the detailing subreddit also have spots over at those other forums. So if I can make a good impression here with my username being the Rag Company, but not being a shilly jerk, I'm actually going to help people. I'm going to answer their microfiber questions or detailing related questions. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to look it up. I'm going to find out from someone else and, compare and contrast until I have a good sense, because I'm not a detailer. I need to figure this stuff out. I just started doing that. As the Rag Company, I just started, made a profile and started replying to people, answering their detailing questions. If I only knew the basic stuff, I wasn't putting anybody in like any harm's way by answering. These are car cleaning questions. It's not like I'm saying use acid or, anything like that, but it's just, safer approaches, whatever. But I learned a lot about products and techniques by doing that. And that's kind of where I started my journey into the detailing side of things. But that was my mission, was to try and reach people through there and let them take the good impression that I made on them there back to the forums that I couldn't get into elsewhere. Over time, started to become more and more of a thing. And people would ask, hey, your username is the Rag Company. Are you like actually a company? Do you carry products for like detailing stuff? Why, yes, we do. And then that way it was like able to do it. But once again, Reddit is so sensitive to anybody coming and like selling product. And I totally get that. Like I was aware of that reputation long before I ever typed a word on there. So I already knew that going in. I think a lot of businesses just go in and immediately like, we sell all this shit. And it's just like, no, that's not not the way to go. So I really just wanted to have a more grounded approach, but with an understanding of like, here's how it could go south and how to avoid those little pratfalls. But yeah, that was basically my mission, to try and reach people who would reach other people instead of trying to do all the legwork myself. So it was just trying to work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
But yeah,
I
that
still don't
was the main
understand
motivation.
Reddit, so you're way ahead of the game.
It's okay. I forced myself to learn, so that had to be the thing I did there. But no, it worked out, and over time it built word of mouth, and that was the most powerful way to build word of mouth, was just a consistent presence there helping people out. And I feel bad because I haven't been there in a while, and I always check like, is it something like anybody? No, nobody's really asking about it now, but I feel like we've established ourselves across the space now that more people come to us, and I can help them out that way. But so that's basically where I kind of got our first growth.
Yep. So I wanted to focus in on the Eagle Edgeless. What goes into designing a specific towel, and how did it evolve from the beginning till now?
So when that one started, it was a lower GSM. It was more in the 450 to 460 range, the initial ones. And the people always get this impression like, oh, microfiber, I can get it from the same factory you got it from, and that kind of thing. It's like, well, actually, just by you saying that, I already can tell you don't know what you're talking about. So the hard part when it comes to microfiber is it's not just one place does everything kind of deal. There's a very segmented way in which this stuff gets made. And while obviously I can't break down all the specifics of it, the main part to understand is your yarn is generally made first in one place. Then you've got the dyes that are handled by a dye house in a different place. Then you've got a place that'll actually do the weaves and the construction using the materials and the dye and all that stuff, and basically combining all that until you finally got a finished product that makes its way to you. Now, if you're looking to start your own business and do that kind of thing, there's a lot of these different elements, but oftentimes there are people who like act as reps that can kind of like consolidate the experience for you, which is, I think, how like in early days, that's how it was working for them. Now we've established relationships where we pretty much know like almost everybody that's out there doing that kind of stuff, and just understanding like how to pick and choose what works best for our setup and what people are going to want, because it can be frustrating when you have something great going and then one of those segments along the way starts to have issues, and say like it's usually not the yarn's like usually the most solid part, because we always stuck to only the absolute cream of the crop, top tier yarn. You got to start with that, and then whatever you do with it afterwards, it'll still be pretty good, even if something gets screwed up along the way after that. But that's key, is just getting the best yarn possible first. But after that, sometimes you have like the dye house has some issues where it's not locking properly, the color can bleed more, that kind of stuff can sneak up on people, because I know everybody's really sensitive to that. And I totally understand it. It's never fun to have like your laundry bleed over into other stuff. But I've also met a lot of detailers who I don't think their mom ever taught them how to actually wash clothes. Because there's a lot of bleeding where it's like, you could have prevented that, but you just took the, one size fits all approach and threw it all in there. And then you were mad when it didn't work.
I'm that guy.
I mean, I'm that guy too, but the difference is I know better and I still do it, but I'm calculating it. And I know when not to do it too. So there's a particular way that you can get away with it up to a point. But I think a lot of the frustrations people don't understand, it's not just coming from one place. There's a lot of points along the way in the process where something could get knocked out of alignment, and then the final product is somehow compromised. Usually that's not a problem, but whenever it has been an issue, it is difficult because there's obviously a big delay where it's being produced in South Korea or China, depending on which type you're trying to get. You have to do all this stuff really far in advance, build out your preferences for like the specs you're looking for and the certain types of weaves you want, all that. And then months and months later, it eventually makes its way to you. But by that point, all kinds of things could have happened in the interim where, people's tastes change and now they all want a different kind of towel or something. So in the early days, it was really hard trying to like predict what people wanted. So we had to just come to our senses and say, all right, we can't play catch up because it's just too slow that way. We have to try and be the taste makers and put something out there that's just going to appeal to people, win them over that way. And then they'll decide, oh, that's what I want.
Yep.
So it's not a perfect science. You screw up sometimes. It happens. But the Eagle Edgeless was one of those that did work out. And it existed in our line, as I said, as a alphanumeric, just like unremarkable if you saw it on a spreadsheet. But in person, if you saw it, you're like, oh, this feels and acts different. That circular knit weave is very nice. It just has a particular feel to it, because a lot of people are like, oh, when I touch these towels, it catches on my skin. Well, those are like a closed loop towel. These don't really do that. They're a little bit different. They have a very gentle feel to them, but they're very premium. So you treat them that way. But yeah, once again, you look at a spreadsheet, nobody's getting excited over 4101-1616-B. So,
all right, Dane, we gotta move on. Process of bringing in brands, Dane. So when TRC decides to bring in a new brand, kind of how does that process start, and what does the choice of brand come to?
This is one I like touching on. This one's actually much easier to go through quickly.
Yeah.
So in the case of this, we have a very simple system. If you just lay it out on the surface, it has to be something that both Anthony and Levi agree on. That's our core thing. And obviously then it's practical matters, like, okay, what's the shipping situation like if it requires that, or what's the international limitations, because some things can't be shipped a certain way. But yeah, that's the number one thing is, okay, we'll test a product based on its merits first. If it looks like something appealing, we'll give it a chance, we'll try it. And if it passes a variety of tests that Levi and Anthony come up with themselves, it's not a standardized system, but depending on the type of product it is, I know there's certain things that they focus on. And it's a lot of times it's just common sense. It's the obvious stuff. It's like, okay, you want to have a good user experience, but you also need to understand, okay, what's going to be the possible price point of this item in relation to the user experience, because different price sensitive groups are going to have different expectations about what they're willing to deal with too. And if you can get really high performance out of something, but it's a pain in the ass to use, it can be a little difficult to sign off on that, because you just know you're going to get a lot of upset people who don't understand how something works calling you and saying, oh, it's screwed up, it's a product. And people hate hearing that they're the one screwing it up, not the product, because nobody likes hearing that. But it's true that sometimes that's exactly what's wrong. But no, it's a big part of it. They just got to both sign off on it, otherwise it won't happen. But the way it's broken down is Anthony takes it from a more like street level approach, like an enthusiast approach. He's the guy who is probably more in line with like an obsessed garage type customer who's like, oh, I want to find my ideal version of this or that. But like from the consumer level, he's the guy who's shopping for his own use, that kind of thing. Levi, he's from the shop background. He's the guy who's looking at, on the ground. I get all these cars in from dealerships, from personal customers. I have some high end, I have some low end. I've got, a real mix of stuff, and it's got to be able to function in my shop lifestyle type environment. Otherwise, it just doesn't cut the mustard, and I'm not going to waste my time with it. So that's where it's really useful to have their two opinions both sign off on something, because if it can manage to cohabitate in those two worlds and be successful at it with those two very different approaches to how detailing works, then it's going to be really useful for a broader array of people. Yep.
So that brings us to nano diamonds. So Dane, what's the scoop on your side of the story of this bringing in the nano diamond coatings through Diamond ProTech? How's that been going?
So I was kind of actually brought in a little bit later on that one. The guys were already starting to test stuff, and I asked, I was like, what are you using over there? And then I found out that they had actually had some communications with these guys like a good while before I actually discovered what was going on. But as time went on, and I could see, like, for example, on Levi's wife's Camry, I was like, what are you using on that? Because you haven't washed that thing, you said, for like a week or two. It looks like you just washed it. And it had like rained recently, but it was just stupid how clean it looked. And I'm like, can I get some of that on my car? I would like to partake, please.
Yeah.
But, no, he was kind of messing around, sampling it in different environments, things like, a car that's going to get used and abused out in the environment, lots of heat, lots of cold, lots of all these different things, road salt, whatever. And it was really impressive to see how much it held up, even compared to coatings that at the time we thought were awesome. Like we love like Legend and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really awesome, tough coatings. But this is just doing something a little different. And it's hard to say because you don't want to be the person who's like, oh, this is better than that. And it's like, well, for certain people, maybe, but not for everybody. Certain people want a particular look or feel, or they like supporting a given brand, that kind of thing. That's okay. We want to encourage people to do that because we're a big tent. We carry a lot of different brands, and we carry them because we believe in every single one of them. But when it came to this stuff, it was like, oh, this is different. This is new. This is exciting because it's performing in ways we didn't know a coating could perform, and the oleophobic properties were a big part of that. Like true oleophobic, not just kind of like sometimes they'll say self-cleaning, but it's like you're really stretching the term. You'll see that out there sometimes. But so I've actually just finished today putting together the back end of a video that's going to come out tomorrow on the Rag Company YouTube channel at 9 a.m. that actually captures our little trip over to Switzerland, where we got to take a look at the lab, and we got to do a pro line application of the Nano Diamond tech onto a 488 Ferrari Pista. So that was pretty cool.
Very cool.
But you actually going to see him go through the process. It's like we start with the fun stuff in the lab, and then the last like 2/3 of the video are almost entirely like pro application stuff. So people looking for a good look at what's to come, take a look at that. There's a lot to see there. But the car had PPF on it. It had stripes on it. It had some paint that needed some correcting, and did the glass. Lots of different stuff going on there. And then right near the end of the video is especially cool because a lot of people, I didn't see questions about it, surprisingly, but it's something that I know a lot of people have been interested in, the spraying of the coating, like actually using a spray gun to apply. And their resident detailer there, their pro that they have in shop at the training center, races Anthony around the pista to coat all the wheels. And Anthony loses miserably, and Anthony's not slow. So, spoiler alert.
Yeah, I saw their two-part spray coating. That looks very interesting on the pro line.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting stuff going on.
I'm looking forward to taking the deep dive into this new line. It's going to be fun. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, if you missed it, everybody, this is part 1 of TRC. We're going to have part 2 with Anthony and Levi, and we're going to dive deep into this nano diamond technology for sure. Dane's here to give us the TRC story, and we got to get him out of here before the haircut. So
I know.
Let's move on
to
the
next. Talk longer and another time where I can actually give you guys like more dirt, but I know this is a short one today.
We got Dane on here in short notice, so it's all good. But next, let's move on to some Twitch action since we're running out of time here. Dane explains Twitch. You can find him on the Twitch channel. Great Dane Films. Definitely give him a follow. He's almost 50 followers. But Dane, why Twitch? Why are we twitching all of a sudden?
So the funny thing is, like, I've seen live streaming for a long time, and my experience with it is, doing the Q&A here at TRC. People are familiar with that, but I'm usually not a in front of the camera type guy. Obviously, I'm built for radio, but I'm somebody who can hang out behind the camera, do the whole thing there, and have a good time doing it that way. I love shooting the videos with Levi and Anthony, but there's also some times where I'm like, it'd be nice to just kind of break out and talk about something that I'm sure will bore a lot of people to tears. It's maybe something that interests me. And I'm sure there's got to be at least a handful of other people out there. Like, I always laugh when I see, like, Matt Mormon Obsessed Garage. I'm like, my God, some people say, like, it's just, like, no charisma here or something like that. Like, oh, why are you watching that? And it's like, I know Matt. Matt's actually very funny in person. Like, hang around him. But, I get it. Like, the approach to some people is off-putting where they're just like, why? Who's watching this stuff? And actually, there are audiences that build out of it.
I got you some reaction videos to react to. Here we go. This is some good entertainment you can catch on Dane's channel. We got some redneck action here.
Yes. Sometimes I just like watching a good old-fashioned race, Got the dirt track race in there.
Got
some
those
good
tires.
Oh,
get you everything.
We got another
just
off-road.
eat them.
This is the kind of stuff you can expect to see on Dane's Twitch, folks.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, this is actually more like pro amateur. The stuff I'm watching is literally just people who brought their cars off the street and want to race each other on the racetrack. Those spectator drags are hilarious because you're like, oh my God, does insurance know that you're doing this? There's a lot of sketchy scenarios. Sometimes I also watch like weird YouTube set up like blind dating shows that go horribly wrong that are funny.
Yeah, we'll leave those for you to introduce the people to.
No, there's all kinds of stuff.
Here's one. I like to bring up some ghost videos every now on Dane's channel, but this is a cryptid video, and it's very recent, back in June of 2022. There's some weird activity in Texas, so let's investigate this real quick.
What is this strange figure that people are trying to figure out?
Yeah, so there's aliens now. There's monkeypox. What about Wolfman? Yeah,
there's a Wolfman in Texas now.
Wolfman now.
It's trying me today.
Who knew?
Video, though.
So do some explaining for us. What you think's going on here?
What? Oh man, they got him posed like literally Bigfoot. That's gotta be He's doing the pose.
The classic Bigfoot pose. So
and if all they're working on is like one still image, that's always the best. It's like, oh
yeah, it wasn't even a video.
Doctor that. It's not even a video. If there was a video, they would be showing you the video right now, but they're not, so that should be a clip. But no, it's always funny to see that stuff. I love when Jamie pops in with the ghost video comments. Although I like Alex, I think you were the one who posted a Rolls Royce ghost as a detailing video. I'm like, here's a ghost video. That was great. That's my kind of humor right there. And we do watch detailing videos on the stream as well, because I know a lot of people who have some crossover appeal, they want that too. So I can definitely speak to it.
Yeah, Dane, I got one more for you. This is what I'd say is going to be you and Anthony if y'all ever stick to the UK cut. This is what's going to be. This is going to be standard activity at TRC once the UK cut really kicks in. So let's see right here. Just foot racing a $3 million Bugatti, you know, standard, all caked up on a Friday night.
Wow. Look at that. Look at the tucked in shirt.
With all average sized body parts.
Yes.
I mean, that guy
no additions
TGI
whatsoever.
Fridays after this.
Yep. So that's the activities
that's
you
an
can find.
Express Cafe booty right there.
There's some Twitch activities you can find on Dane's Twitch. Make sure to give him a follow. Dane, we ran out of time. We got to get you a haircut. So,
oh man, thank you.
So it was a pleasure having you on. Hit us with the plugs, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, of course. So, like you was saying, I'd really appreciate if people follow me on Twitch. If you don't know what Twitch is, that's okay. It's just for live streaming, but I'm trying to bring something different to the platform. It's like most people know it for playing video games and stuff. I'm trying to do like reacting to YouTube videos and stuff like we showed there, you know, with some fun commentary. And my favorite part is the chat, interacting with you guys, typing in the comments, keeping it lively. That's what I really love. So if you feel like you can hang with the chat, then it's a place for you. I know G. Davis has been watching. He's definitely in there. So, it is a fun time. Go check that out at Great Dane Films, GRADANEFILMS. That's where you find me. And that's Instagram too. That's the other place. Otherwise, I'm out here just, promoting TRC stuff all the time. So you can count on that too. But that's me in a nutshell.
And there you go. That's part one with the Rag Company. Well, like I said, we'll have Anthony and Levi on in the future. As soon as Anthony decides to give me a good set date to have him on. He's a busy man over there.
Keep on him. He'll do it. He just needs a little encouragement. This week was real busy for him.
Yep. So
I think that will be last minute.
Yeah.
No live chat Q&A this week. Sorry, chat, but save all your questions for Anthony and Dane. You can blast them with questions when we get them on here.
Yeah, and Dane, we'll do it.
Appreciate it again. You can follow Alex at BuckyVW. Dewey, got any final comments? I know you didn't get to talk a lot this episode, but
that's all right. We're under the gun, no, Dane. Just thanks for taking the time out of your day to do this and help us out. So really appreciate it.
No, this is fun.
I know we would have no problem talking for hours. We could easily do it.
Oh,
but yeah, I look forward to the next bit with Anthony and Levi there, and maybe have you again sometime.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have Dane on again. I'm thinking for TRCMA we'll have a big countdown show.
Ooh,
big time.
Well, we're gonna get Jamie in the studio. That's a requirement, man. We're gonna get you down here.
Yep. So stay tuned for that. As you know, you can follow us, watch it live here on YouTube every Friday, 6 Central, available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review, people. We need more written reviews, so get to it.
Do it.
We'll do some more cool stuff. All right, we got to get Dane out of here. See you, everybody. We'll see you next week.